It's been nearly 6 years since Panasonic has brought us a new flagship camera, and this one is gonna blow your mind. Greetings and welcome, my name is Rob for Adorama, and this is my hands-on, up-close look at the just-released Panasonic LUMIX S1R Mark II. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Over the last several years, Panasonic has been giving big-time updates to its Micro Four Thirds line of Lumix cameras, specifically the GH series, and some pretty good offerings in the S5 lineup as well, but alas, we finally have a new flagship camera, and the LUMIX S1R Mark II is a massive step up in the hybrid photo cinema camera market. I would even go as far to say that this camera has somewhat of a leg up on other cameras in its class and some really great new technology that absolutely floored me out on a recent shoot. You're going to get to see some of that. We're going to get into all the features this camera has to offer, and there are tons, but first, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for all of the latest new product announcements from Adorama. All right, first and foremost, let's talk about the photo capabilities of the S1R II. It contains 3 really big improvements over its predecessor, the S1R, which came out all the way back in 2019. I know, seems like forever ago. In short, the areas of improvement are going to be speed, autofocusing, and image quality. Starting with speed, the S1R II has a 44.3 megapixel full-frame sensor. Now, that's smaller than the original S1R. It had a 47 megapixel full-frame sensor. So why would a camera company decrease the size of a sensor in a newer model? That doesn't seem to make sense. Or does it? A smaller sensor can mean the internal processor can render and process images faster. It also means better low-light performance. Having a smaller sensor can also improve autofocus because there's fewer pixels to process when calculating focus area, and the S1R Mark II uses AI to improve upon that even more. We'll get into that in a moment. Let's also not forget that 44.3 megapixels is nothing to scoff at. That's a pretty big sensor. I was really impressed with the dynamic range, the clarity, the resolution, and the speed at which this camera captures photos. There are several programmable burst modes that you can easily assign and switch between on the dial here, and the S1R II has an all-new high-speed burst mode that allows for 40 frame per second capture with the electronic shutter. So clearly, Panasonic is really targeting sports photographers and those who want to capture moving targets. There's also an ultra-high resolution photo stitch mode that can create 176 megapixel images with absolutely incredible resolution and detail. Lots of beautiful lifelike detail in these images. I just love Panasonic colors, always have. I'm shooting raw in portrait mode here, and look at the color rendering, just beautiful. At full res, raw file sizes are averaging right around 55 megabytes, and fine level JPEGs right around 20 megabytes. Pretty large files. Now, when it comes to autofocusing, I'm seeing some really big improvements. The S1R II uses a hybrid phase detect autofocus system, but it's augmented and enhanced with AI. So what does that mean? It's essentially this, and this comes right from Panasonic directly. Evolved phase hybrid autofocus enhances human recognition accuracy and maintains focus even when multiple subjects intersect. I can tell you firsthand, the autofocus is fast and it is accurate. You can set it to track humans, animals, cars, motorbikes, even trains and airplanes. You can choose to track just the eyes or eyes, face, and body all together. And I tried all of the human modes, and the S1R II was really locked on. I mean, really strong, very fast autofocus. Now, of course, the speed of your lens is going to factor into that as well, but it pretty much handled everything we threw at it. So what about low light capability? Well, I'm glad you asked. When the sun went down, I cranked the ISO all the way up. I mean, to the max. The max was 51,200. Now, here's what that looked like. Obviously, some noise in the image at the max ISO, but we were also not using any supplemental light, and it was deep dusk outside. And the amount of noise you're seeing here really isn't all that difficult to pull out or probably even completely eliminate using today's advanced noise reduction technology in Lightroom, Imagen AI, or Topaz AI. This image here was shot at 10,000 ISO. I have to give the S1R Mark II high marks for low light performance, probably due to the smaller sensor and being able to process images faster, a big win for this camera. There's lots of other features on the photo side dealing with off-camera flash, but one thing really worth pointing out is that the LUMIX S1R II can tether directly to the latest version of Capture One software for instant review and editing for clients on set. Let's move on to what I know many of you came here to find out about, and that's the video capabilities of this camera. And there are many new additions that I think are going to have video geeks absolutely gooning. In short, the main improvements to the video functions of the S1R Mark II are in codecs and recording, formats, autofocus, stabilization, and monitoring features. Let's dive in. You may remember when Panasonic released the original S1R along with the more video-centric S1 back in 2019. Those are amazing cameras with outstanding video functionality and quality, full-frame sensors, excellent low-light performance, and that signature V-Log color science. Well, I'm here to tell you, hold on to your hats, this newest iteration in the LUMIX S1 line packs a kick. You've got internal 8.1K 420 up to 30 frames per second and internal 6.4K 420 up to 30 frames per second, both with 10-bit color. Those and other ultra-high definition resolutions are also available, including 6K 420 up to 60 frames per second, all in .mov mode, but check this out. If you flip over into Apple ProRes recording mode, you get up to 6K 30 frames per second RAW recording. Internal. Just look at all of these codec options in ProRes RAW and ProRes 422HQ. It's absolutely insane. You've got hybrid log gamma Rec 2020 in many of these codecs, so whatever your film requires or how you like to shoot for color space and color grading, the S1R Mark II has got you covered. Another great feature is proxy recording to the internal SD card slot. So you've got side-by-side proxy files for easy editing later on, and you're gonna need it, mostly because these file sizes are enormous. The 5.8K RAW HQ files are gonna cost you 4.2 gigabytes per second, so have some extra drives on hand. Speaking of which, you can record externally to an SSD through the camera's USB port. This is a must when shooting any of these RAW formats, or the ProRes formats for that matter, despite having a CFast card slot built in. All right, let's talk about slow motion. You've got slow and quick mode that offers 6K up to 60 frames per second with baked-in slow motion, and Cinema 4K 60 frames per second up to 120 frames per second. And just look, amazing image rendering at 120 frames per second, silky smooth, and I can't see any visible artifacting here, likely because you're getting 200 megabytes per second in these files. Other amazing new feature with the LUMIX S1R Mark II is that utilizing the HDMI port, you can go to an external device and get Cinema 4K 120 frames per second playback, and for recording, 4K 120 and even 8K recording out to an external recorder. Now you're going to need a device that's capable of handling all that output, but the option is there. Very forward thinking by Panasonic. There are tons of other great video features, including in-camera false color monitoring, which I love, to aid with exposure, tally lamps on the front and the back of the camera, adjustable fan modes, live streaming, 32-bit float internal audio recording through the latest XLR audio adapter, and more. Panasonic cameras have traditionally had amazing in-body image stabilization, and the S1R II takes it even further with a non-crop mode stabilization for wide-angle lenses. You're not going to lose your edges when running and gunning and hand-holding for the sake of a more stable image. Now, when you get back home and get into post, you might want to add some more warp stabilization or something to that effect, but it's nice to have the entire intended image to start with up front. In low light, the S1R II performed magnificently. You've got a dual native ISO sensor, which is 1000 and 4000 ISO, by the way. We utilize the high ISO native setting for these nighttime shots, and I just love the result. Anytime you can start with a low light image this clean out of the camera, you just have confidence going into post that any remaining noise is going to be easily removed using your preferred noise reduction software. There are so many other features to list about this camera, many of which have been covered in other videos, but the ones we've mentioned here are the major improvements and additions new to this LUMIX line. One thing worth mentioning is that you now have 5 customizable user slots instead of 3, because you can never have enough customizable presets, especially given all of the video codec and frame rate options available in the LUMIX S1R Mark II. It truly is a beast of a hybrid photo cinema camera from our friends over at Panasonic. I hope you've enjoyed these images and my breakdown of this camera. Be sure to like and subscribe and drop a note in the comments and tell us what you think about this latest addition to the LUMIX flagship lineup. For Adorama, I'm Rob Adams. Until next time.